Hi, everyone, and welcome to the DevEx podcast at VictoriaMetrics. This is our second episode, and I'm really happy to have two of my favorite DevRels invited here as guests. So, Adriana Villela and Cortney Nickerson. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having us for the second episode. I feel so honored.
Well, I'm really excited to kick off this podcast. Actually, for the people who are listening to us, this is a brand new podcast from VictoriaMetrics. It's about, let's say, community stuff, developer experience, how basically interviewing a bunch of people from the community. It doesn't matter if they're like CNCF ambassadors or they work like DevRels, or they used to be engineers or not. The idea is they all have share a love for community, and they're doing amazing job in the community. And there are so many ways how we can talk about this endlessly, but it's really good to share some of this love and efforts with the listeners out there. And this episode, I wanted to focus on a few things. I know that obviously we'll start with some intros for the people who don't know you yet, but you are doing an amazing job in the community. You are both CNCF ambassadors. You're running so many things around you. So I want to pick your brains and find more about that. So if you could now give us a few lines of your CV and start with the introductions.
Cool. I can start. My name is Adriana Villela. I am based out of Toronto, Canada. I was originally born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, but I've been living in Canada for about 35 years, which is a really long time. I started off my career as a Java developer. I did it for about 16 years, and then I've been kind of meandering throughout my career since then, going back and forth from management to individual contributor, and have decided that I don't like managing people. So I stay as an individual contributor because I love having like something tangible that I produce. I found that a little bit frustrating about management. I did take a little break partway through my career. I had a third life crisis, if you will, in my early 30s, where I decided to quit tech altogether and become a professional photographer. And that was going to be my forever plan. And it lasted about a year. And it was the best, worst year of my life because I was miserable for that year, but I learned a lot about myself. And it gave me a lot of the skills that ended up coming in handy for DevRel work. So and I've been a DevRel for, I guess, since 2022. When I was recruited away from my management job, I was managing an observability team. I was recruited away from that because of the posts that I was writing on my Medium blog about observability, my public learning journey into observability. So here I am.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And you're also part of the OpenTelemetry community, is that right?
I am, yeah. And I got started in that because of my first DevRel job. I was working at Lightstep, and my manager, the person who recruited me away from that management role, said, they encouraged me to contribute to OpenTelemetry. So I started in the OTel docs, and then I ended up in, at the time, it was called the OpenTelemetry End User Working Group. And one of the people who had founded the working group had left the space. And so there was basically a vacancy in that group. And I joined Reese Lee, who I refer to her as my OTel ride or die. We've done a lot of collaboration in OTel. I joined her and we were co-chairing the End User Working Group. And then we got converted to a SIG, and we helped elevate the end user SIG from, this like little group that I don't know, that people were really paying attention to all of a sudden, I think last year we started seeing our membership increase. People started like wanting to volunteer for stuff. I'm like, oh my God, you want to join us? This is amazing. We try to stay like active in the community. Like we always put out, we have OTEL in practice, which is like present cool OTEL topic to the community, or OTEL Q&A, which is like, tell me how you use OTEL in your organization. And so that we could connect end users to each other. And we also help coordinate surveys with the other OTEL SIGs. So if a SIG has an idea for a survey, we collaborate with them on it. We help to promote it. And we even developed a framework for really conducting and analyzing the survey results, thanks to an LFX mentee that we had working for us last fall. So big shout out to Ernest who helped us out with that. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's really extraordinary, and it's a lot of how can I say, important knowledge, like important experience that, you know, many listeners, they want to unpack that and want to, you know, maybe follow up. So thank you for that, Adriana. And Cortney, back to you.
Yeah, I'm still sitting here reeling about your year as a photographer.
I have stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm dying to hear them at some point. It's very cool. I did not know that. So learning something new every day. My journey has been nowhere near as technical as Adriana's. My name's Cortney. I started out in the cloud native space coming from a non-technical background. I was born and raised in New Mexico in the southwestern quadrant of the US. If you've never been there, there's probably more cacti and cattle altogether than there are people in the entire state. But the state itself is about the size of a European country. So there's a lot of beautiful, wide open space and nature. Lots of Native American culture, but 10 minutes from my parents' house, and still to this day, if you go out onto the reservation, you don't even have cell phone service a lot of times, let alone cloud native computing. So it was not something that we had dial-up modem if we were lucky at the public library, and you had to sign up and wait for that. And so tech was not something that was ever really, when somebody talked to me about technology, I very much was like, oh, well, a pulley was an original piece of technology. That's how rudimentary things were in the state of New Mexico, and still oftentimes still are. But I now live in northern Spain, and went to university in New York and ended up in Europe, and have lived a very diverse background in terms of my professional trajectory. I coached a Spanish national softball team for a bit, which that's actually how I paid for university. I was on a sports scholarship. I ran a company for a small, for a family. It was my first startup. It was language immersion summer camps for kids. They would come from around the world to learn different languages and be immersed in them, and meet other kids and do language exchanges. And then that turned from just a small summer camp of like 50 kids into 3 or 4 summer camps with thousands of kids, and study abroad programs, and family stays, and surfing camps with language, and cooking camps, and a billion other products and things. So I did that for about 10 years. Then I did some stints with marketing firms and fell into the tech space. I had my son, and I was looking for a work from home job, and I took a job as an SDR. So if you don't know what that is a sales development representative. I made cold calls to people about an up and coming web application security tool. And that was actually how I got started in tech in general, was through sales and marketing at a startup here in northern Spain that needed somebody who could speak English natively. And I just happened to be around and able to do so. And that was my first real connection with anything technical. I was very lucky because I think I was employee 6 or 7, the first non-technical one. And to call people on the phone, I needed to understand what was going on. And that team was incredibly generous. It was my first contact with developers to learn that developers, and especially open source folks, are incredibly generous with their time and their knowledge. And they taught me anything and everything I asked constantly. And I fell in love with not just the product and the techie part, but also the people and the environment I was in. And from there, I had a friend who had kind of fallen into the data on Kubernetes community. They needed somebody who could do back office stuff like write newsletters and get in touch with people for podcasts and get their bios up on the website. And so I did for a couple of years back office, my very good friend, and we ran the data on Kubernetes community. And that was my first step into a tech community. Was writing newsletters, and that was how I got started in Cloud Native, was in a community around a piece of technology that at the time, Kelsey Hightower said data should not be running on Cloud Native anything. And so it was a very diverse group of people who kept insisting that, well, even though he said that, it should still be running on Cloud Native. And now we see loads of data companies, right, in this space. But that's how I got involved in the Cloud Native community, was through that up and coming data on Kubernetes community. And then from there, and a lot of self-learning and frustration, and that is still continuing today, I moved into a DevRel position, and now I'm back in community. So that's how I got started in this space.
Yep. I mean, I was like, there are so many different stories, like from the DevRels I meet, or the people right now, they're doing DevRel or community work. There are many of them that they switch, from a totally non-technical role or, from a technical role, but they all love it. They all have like this, I think they have this like feature, like personality feature, that they love to help, they love to interact, and they love learning. So for people that are in DevRel, I think one of the most common traits is like curiosity, right? So I found myself like asking what makes you curious, what makes you still be motivated in cloud native and open source. And obviously you can link it with OpenTelemetry or Kyverno or other, communities that you are now leading, or you are like deeply involved. But if you're like thinking also a bit broader, if you think like you're gonna maybe start going to another community or learning like a new tech, or switching a bit around, what makes you tick in cloud native?
I mean, for me personally, I find everything quite fascinating, how it all pieces together. Mm-hmm. But also, because I don't come from a super technical background, it's really easy for me to rotate between things. I don't feel like I'm too niched into something, and that's a huge opportunity. I know so many people that get very deep into a specific community or space. I don't have enough depth on anything to feel like I can go that deep on anything. But what I do have is enough pieces of a bunch of different things to then get an understanding of the people and the space of what's going on and understand the problems. So a lot of times for me, the curiosity comes from the actual people in the different community spaces that I'm in, and whatever the trend is that they're on. Open telemetry is one of those trends that got like massive growth over the last couple of years. So because there's so many people that are really intrigued with tracking everything and the measurements and actually using open telemetry in different ways, I have taken much more of an interest in it. The same thing kind of happened for me, at least with eBPF and the whole networking space.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of I fell into a community group where there were a handful of people who were looking at different ways to use eBPF, not in your typical Cilium or isovalent networking way, but they were working on their own projects and tools from the kernel, and I found it fascinating. Also didn't really realize like how many people get so into the real like depth of geeking out on I touched the kernel. Because when you're not a technically backgrounded person, you're like, all right, I'll do it, whatever. But then a bit of context later, and it's like, oh yeah, I mean, that is kind of the technology. It runs over 90% of the world, so I guess that's pretty cool. Also not going to do that. I'll leave that to other people to do, but found that space to be fascinating, mostly because of the people who are in it and doing new things. So for me, a lot of curiosity comes from the people that I'm around and who come in and out of the community spaces that I'm in, and because they come up with fascinating projects and stories and about the things that they're doing. And so I want to understand them and what they're working on more. So that's generally when I go down a rabbit hole. That's why I met somebody who's super passionate about some project they're doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know more. I have no idea what you're talking about, and then I go down that rabbit hole for a bit.
For me, I guess I'm the opposite of Cortney, because I have pigeonholed myself into OTel, and it's one of those things where for me it kind of I don't know, it was one of those communities where I found my fit, and you know, I remember when I was looking for like my second advocacy role. I had a bunch of people in DevRel who were like just throwing like all sorts of like DevRel job postings at me. And it was like for database DevRel and whatever else DevRel. And I'm like, but I want to stay in observability. Because at that point, like I had like made such an investment, like a personal investment and emotional investment in the OTel community, like to level up and to like make connections and to contribute, that like I didn't really want to be anywhere else. And you know, like Cortney said, the people keep me there. I can't speak to other cloud native communities, but I will say like OpenTelemetry was like basically the first open source contribution that I ever made. And I mean, I graduated in 2001. It's going to be 25 years this year since I graduated. And in most of my career, like it wasn't up until 2022 that I made my first open source contribution. Mm-hmm. And for someone who'd been in tech for that long, it was like kind of terrifying. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make a pull request and then someone's going to be judgy and then they're going to tell me I'm stupid and I'm never going to want to do this again. And it was the complete opposite. It was like very thoughtful comments on the pull request. And I was like, oh my God, I had my first pull request merged. It felt like such an accomplishment. And it just kept me coming back for more, because I'm like, okay, people actually want my contribution. They want me here. They're not being assholes about it. And that to me is a huge thing, because like, you know, if you've ever been on Stack Overflow and you post a question, and like I've never, full disclosure, I've never posted a question on Stack Overflow, because I've seen how some people respond to some of those questions and they're straight up mean. And I was like so scared that was going to happen, like for my first pull request, and that did not happen. And I'm very grateful for that. I think having that thoughtfulness in the community really, really, really makes a huge difference and keeps me coming back for more, and you know, keeps me wanting to contribute in the space. So
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I think I really like the fact that you have like two different perspectives to this. And also for me, it's like, I'm somewhere like in between. All my life I worked in tech. I mean, yeah, I had like tech positions. I come from engineering. And then at some point, I discovered conferences and talks. Obviously, this is not just the main thing of DevRel, just one of the other, like little features and responsibilities. But then I was like discovering this whole new world of community, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty interesting. You get to learn so much more from like meeting people, talking to them, just like normal human interaction, than just sitting at your office, and next to your laptop and writing PRs. And yeah, it's my second year of contributing to open source, to open telemetry, and little by little is like I'm finding myself in a way protected and motivated by the community. Right now I don't have to take like big leaps. I'm not like a junior engineer. I'm not in university. I don't have to make my name out of myself or like prove something to myself. I just like want to take it easy and be part of the community. And mentoring, like both of you said, I think this is really, really rewarding. When you see like you can help other people, you give a kind advice, you give some kind of advice, but you also receive in return. And this is what I think right now, maybe with age, with more experience, I'm like valuing. I'm really like finding myself in that sweet spot that I'm actually grateful for the community and for what people are giving through their efforts. And I'm not trying to think solely from my perspective and solely from a technical point of view, which can be awesome, but is not, the whole world, out there. Speaking about, events, community talks, I know that many people, the people out there, or even, students that maybe want to get into DevRel or into community positions or roles, they're thinking, oh, this looks so cool. It's like going to conferences, giving talks, doing podcasts, basically, being the glue to the entire community. But in fact, it's not just that, right? So let's debunk a bit with like obviously your own words and your own experience. Like, what do you think DevRel is, or how did you experience it?
The way I look at it is DevRel is really it's all about connections. So it's like how you choose to connect is really up to you. Like there are some DevRels that do a lot of talks. There's some DevRels that produce a lot of videos. There's some DevRels that blog a lot. I'm a serial blogger. I love writing videos. I do them. I've gotten better at them over the years, and I'm grateful to have that skill set. But I think in my heart of hearts, I am a writer and I enjoy speaking. But it isn't just like, in order to be able to write, speak, do videos, you got to do the work. You have to like dig into the technology. So we are. My daughter likes to say that I'm an influencer for old tech people. That's how she describes my job, which I'm like, yeah, that's accurate. It's like, oh, it's the first time you can actually tell people what I do, because before I was like, I don't know what you do. Yes, I'm an influencer for old tech people.
That's so cool. Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, did I cut off? My internet is terrible.
Just a little bit. It's all cool. Yeah, we heard about that. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But I like I was saying, it does mean that like we do have to put in the effort to learn the technology. In some ways, it's like it's harder for us as DevRels, because it's like not only do we have to learn the stuff, we have to explain what we've learned to people in a way that's accessible. And that's hard. I mean, if you think back to like your university professors, I don't know like what your professors were like, but I can tell you that 95% of my university professors were crappy teachers. They were brilliant people who could not explain what they were teaching if their lives depended on it. And I think as a DevRel, we have this unique talent of being able to explain it. And to explain it means you have to understand it, because otherwise you're just regurgitating someone else's words. And I think that is the tricky part. Like we're kind of a jack of all trades, really, is how I look at it. And that's what I like. You know, we get to be creative in like a bunch of different ways. We get to be artistically creative, but I'll also think like, as a techie, I think technology, we tend to not necessarily look at technology as a creative field, but it really is creative, like creative problem solving and getting around, barriers, whatever those may be, whether they're people barriers or technology barriers. We have to think creatively on how we approach a problem, how we share the solution of a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, it looks easy from afar, but actually it's not that easy, you know. Once you
so hard.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the same, I can relate to the whole university experience. It's very hard to actually find good teachers or professors, or even, you know, like professionals in general. Actually explaining things is an art. And explaining it like with very simple concepts in a simple way, it's hard. And I think it also, kind of humbles us in a way, like people. It's really hard up to the moment when you try to explain something and then you find out that you're not as smart as you realize. And I think, if you ask any PhD person, to explain something in really simple terms, then, you might find some cracks in the whole vision. But yeah, I mean, what do you think, Cortney, about this stuff? I mean, I know that from afar, the same, many people, they really like this job, or they want to get in this type of role because it looks like an influencer is like, oh, I have this YouTube channel, I have like, I don't know how many K followers, and I really want to get into DevRel and have a team and, do my vlogs and whatever. But I think it's much more than that.
Oh, yes. My favorites are always the young ones that are like, I want to be a DevRel, and you ask them why, and it's because they think that it's a lot of going to conferences and just hanging out with friends, and a lot of them do take their first jobs and do their video blogging, and then discover very shortly after that they don't actually have the skill set that they thought they did, because so much of what we do is not always the tech skill set either. And so I always, at least my experience at DevRel is, one, you need to know what it is that the person employing you expects from you, because there are a lot of different expectations and definitions of what DevRel is, and every company has different things that they need or want, depending on their maturity level, depending on what it is, like how long they've been operating. And so the first thing is understanding the people who have decided that they need a DevRel. What do they think they need one for? That's the first question that I think oftentimes people don't understand, that is incredibly important, because no two DevRels around the world, out of the three of us, I guarantee none of us are actually doing the same things right now. We might all blog, we might all make videos once in a while, but those are very top level things. How we're measured, why we're doing them, the amount that's done, all of those things are driven by totally different business objectives. And I think a lot of times in DevRel, what sets people apart who are exceptionally good at it is that they have some sort of experience outside of just development, because they have to be able to understand the business objective that they're driving. So some folks you're going to see them doing a lot of different things where they're making tons of videos and content because their actual job is driving awareness of a newer tool. And so they need to be able to be making all of the content and putting it out and rolling it out very quickly. Other people, their job is actually based around developer experience or enabling a developer to use a tool that's far more mature. And so the content that you're putting out is based on teams that are going to be using something that they've already bought into, and how are they going to do that, and what types of actual end user issues come up, and giving them troubleshooting guides to be able to do that more efficiently. Other people are going to be doing community things in order to grow adoption of something, or to get people to interact with a new feature set and get feedback, and be able to push that into the product team so that they can develop something that's stronger for the market. And other people are just there advocating for a general set of technology and practices. And so depending on what those objectives are, you need a totally different skill set for each one of them. Some people are exceptional at driving awareness and not so great at the actual education part. Some people are exceptional at the education part and are not so great at actually driving interaction amongst community members. Right. So there are different skill sets and soft skills that people need to have in order to be good at DevRel. You need to know yourself incredibly well to be able to say what you can and can't deliver. And also still be willing to get outside of your comfort zone, because sometimes you're going to have to do things that are not your skill set. I, for one, despise making videos. I hate doing it. I will do anything and everything to get out of making a video. I will have an intern for 6 months who doesn't know how to do hardly anything and teach them the tech and like coddle them through because they're good at making videos, right? Because
that's awesome. It's a lot of work. Videos are so hard. Oh my God. Yeah. Like that. I think that's why I prefer writing.
I'll make the script. I'll do the vocal part, but the editing, the endless
editing is, yeah. No, and you have to transcribe stuff too, because like you don't want to leave out like, you know, people who are impaired. You don't want, you want to have the transcript so that they, if they can't hear, they can at least read it.
They can
right?
at least, or even it just understanding your end user might be in a corporate office where they can't have like they need to just have the screen on because they also just can't have the volume turned on. Like there's totally. So many things.
So much work.
The videos, oh my God, I'm never happy with them. And like there are just different skill sets that do different things. And so understanding business objectives and yourself and your own skill sets to be able to say, yes, I can drive that. No, I cannot. And I think a lot of times we've all been on teams where you have a very well-rounded team where everybody has a very different set of skills. And those teams drive a lot of different initiatives because each person has different skill sets and objectives that they're driving incredibly well. But we've also all been on teams where you are a one-man show or one-woman show in this case. And being able to say, what do you actually want from this? And then going and creating it and delivering it and coming back and saying, here's what you've actually gotten. And measuring those things in a business aspect are skill sets that oftentimes junior devs who think that they want to be DevRel don't actually have enough knowledge yet of how products are built, how teams function, how businesses actually measure things, the impact of something, being able to stand up for themselves and say, I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what it is that you want me to deliver. Because as DevRel, the array of things that we can be asked to do, if you aren't equipped with the skills to actually say, hey, I don't understand what it is that you want. can you be more specific? More specific than that. I need you to be very specific, and then understand, okay, now I know very specifically what it is they want to deliver, and then creating a bunch of different collateral that delivers that same thing in different ways, shapes, forms, to figure out which one of those actually is going to resonate, and do that over and over and over again. It's quite a tedious process, almost like video editing. And
so true.
And so I think so often we get really young talent that really wants to be involved in the community, which is great. But oftentimes what they need to learn isn't the community aspect. It's the actual business drivers of why does DevRel even exist as a role, and what do you drive for a business? Because if you can't connect the different things that you're doing to the business goals, at some point people question why they have you.
Yeah, no, I think this is like a very
and DevRel is one of those.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Adriana.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say DevRel is one of those weird positions where, like, I feel like in an economic downturn, it's probably the first one to go, because people are like, well, what exactly are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's also like a tricky one in the same sense that, like, not only are you representing a company brand, but you're not necessarily marketing, but you are sneaky marketing, and you're using your personal brand. I think personal brand goes a really long way in DevRel. So leveraging your personal brand and building your personal brand at the same time that you're helping to elevate the company brand, which is really tricky.
Yeah, that's another, let's say, how can I say, a contradiction in terms, right? But when you say, like, you're trying to promote yourself, but you're trying to promote the company products, you're trying to be open source, you're trying to be cloud native, like you're jungling so many things, like it's really, really hard. But you're also trying to educate people, right? You're trying to explain things, and you want to show them that, hey, this is cool, you should try it, you should go for it. But I'm not really giving you a commercial solution. I'm just saying you, like, there's an option there's an alternative, you can definitely go for it. And it's really hard to juggle all these things, and there's really a fine line. And also the community, as far as I see it from my view, is like, it's very sensitive, right? Where do you draw that line between, okay, is this commercial, is this a vendor pitch, or is this just like, an open source, or like a very neutral kind of conversation? It's really, really difficult, and it's really a fine line in between. But what I really like you both mentioned it, and you were very spot on, is like, besides understanding the objectives of the company, what they want to do, what's this role about, it's also how do you track, how do you measure, right, your results or whatever you are doing in there. Like, besides trying to understand really, really well in specifics what you need to do, afterwards you need to make sure that you deliver, right? So like, I want to know, maybe you could give some examples. You don't have to name companies or anything, but it's like, I think the really sensitive point is, after you give a talk, or after you, I don't know, created a video or shipped a blog post, how do you measure that impact? How do you know that it really did well with the community or with the users, or they even went to the page, they even tried browsing through the website? How difficult, or how what's the best strategy in a way to measure that? And there can be so many, but let's try at least to give some examples.
I think the most obvious one is like, looking at the stats for your videos, your blog posts, etc., right? Seeing like how many people actually read it, how many of them or watched it and stayed all the way through. I think there's definitely that. But then one that takes, I think, a lot longer to cultivate is the one that gives me the warm fuzzy feelings, is when I get like people connecting with me on LinkedIn, sending me personalized messages saying, oh my God, thank you so much for doing what you do in the community. Your content made a difference. Like, those comments are obviously not as frequent as you know, the you getting like your viewership or readership stats, but I think those for me are the impactful ones, knowing that I get people coming back to me, coming back to reading my content because they trust what I put out. And I think the ultimate one too is like, you know, getting invited to speak at a conference because people know your content and want to, you know, they want to hear you speak. Like, I think that's, but that's a slower burn. That is really a much slower burn. It takes, you know, some time to develop like that personal brand, to get people to like pay attention to your stuff. And I think, but that's a result, I think, of just like being consistent, but being consistent and genuine, because I think that's what people appreciate. Like, at least for my writing, the feedback that I've always gotten is they connect with my writing because I feel like a real human, right? I talk about the stupid things that I've tried and the stupid things that, you know, what's worked, what hasn't worked. So it's like, oh, I've been in your place and I want to make it easy so that you don't have to suffer the way I did, and people can relate to that. But that, I think it takes a while to build that. And dare I say, maybe a little bit harder if you're a lady in tech, because like it or not, there is, you know, the man bias. Hate to say it. People just tend to trust men more than women with a bunch of stuff. And I hate to say it, but tech is one of those things. So it takes us a lot longer to build up that trust.
Yeah, totally. I like this part. And yeah, before I give it to you, Cortney, I think it's because, to be honest, backtracking a bit, why I wanted to also do this type of podcast that's not the normal, you know, tech talks, you know, you invite a bunch of people and you start looking at some demo or whatever. It's like, you know, the human side of DevRel or developer experience engineer, or whatever you want to call it, the community. It's not just fluff, how many people interpret it. That's why I wanted to invite, and I'll be inviting people from, you know, different backgrounds, different regions, just talking about normal stuff, because it's very important, very sensitive. To be genuine, to be human, to say that you made a mistake, and you show it to people through your content. That's actually very important. Building your personal brand, which I really, really like, and being genuine and staying consistent is, I think, it's fundamental to being a good DevRel, or, you know, community, have a community role. And besides, you know, having all that curiosity, that goes a long way. So for me, it's this podcast, but also like interviewing a lot of people will give me the chance to understand a bit, you know, what am I doing here? Because I'm super new at this. I'm discovering all like these inconsistencies, and my brain, my techie brain is like, oh, this is not right. It shouldn't be like that. But I was like, oh, am I the only one that feels like this? Am I the only one, you know, also woman in tech, that feels like this? Or like, you know, DevRel is so like conflicting, and like it's such a weird place to be. But also I think it's beautiful because we need to you know, debunk it a bit and explain it, take it, you know, air it up and explain to people. And one way I think it's very important and really difficult is how you track it, measure it, and quantify it, right? Because it's true, many companies don't have a very clear idea of what they want from DevRel. They probably know they want more content, or, you know, more stuff. We want to be at many conferences where you're just going to throw a bunch of budget on you, and, you know, go you can go crazy with that budget. But afterwards, what do you get from it, right? Is measuring contracts, is measuring, I don't know, stats, or is it building relations and a genuine, you know, like generally bonds with the community, that they know, yeah, Adriana Villela, she's I know her and I like her content because she's very genuine, and you know, it's her basically. And I like Cortney because she's driving this community, and the same is like very genuine people that are, you know, are a driving force. So I'm going to give it back to you, Cortney, to enlighten me a bit. I'm the junior DevRel here, and I totally admit it.
I mean, in terms of measurement, I have I typically decide how I'm going to measure things before I do them. But for my own aspect of, okay, I need to make sure that I know how I'm going to measure this so that I know how to do better the next time. Mm-hmm. But I try to make those measurements things that I can then share with the company at large. And I try to always connect them to some larger overarching goal, whether that's from a marketing team, a product team, or a sales team. And frankly, I try to always have at least 2 of those included in whatever form of measurement that I'm doing. So if I'm writing a blog post, I will bother the marketing team until they give me a UGC link that's going to proc on their Google metrics. Because anybody who clicks on something that I wrote should be attributed to me and the work that I'm doing, not just the global marketing team at large. And oftentimes what happens is the global marketing team at large will be like, oh no, we put out this many blog posts. Well, actually you didn't. You published them. You sent them off to somebody to do SEO. You might have formatted them, but you didn't actually go through all of the work of figuring out what your community is talking about, what aspects of it did you talk to the product team and decide on what features you're going to show and what's that going to look like? And did you do all this? You probably did not. And so those are things that as a DevRel, I have become I take huge ownership of it, because at the end of the day, it is a reflection of what I'm doing to move the company forward. And if I don't take ownership of that, somebody else will hang that star on their shoulder. And yep. I think as a woman in tech, but as a professional woman in the world in general, oftentimes we learn this lesson very late. And sometimes it can be almost jarring to say, no, wait, I did that. That was not a team effort. That was me, right? And that's necessary, especially in a developer advocacy role, because it's cross-functional. And in being cross-functional, when something works, oftentimes people who do have very specific measures that they have to live up to will pull the metrics from anything and everything that's around that's working. So marketing teams have very clear metrics that they oftentimes get measured by. Sales teams do as well. Product teams do also, as they're building out features, right? They have a lot more visibility of what feature sets people are clicking on and how that UX works and whether people are getting the visibility and the results they need. But the person who's tasked with going out into the world to get the feedback is oftentimes the DevRel, right? And so I keep track of everyone I talk to in our community. So I have a running list of people that now you can put in the CRM, or you can create your own list yourself. But I typically go into the CRM and will create a thing and make sure that it's myself who's the person who created that person in the CRM. And then I make sure that all of my emails and LinkedIn messages, I log them so that it becomes very clear. No, this wasn't somebody that came from top of funnel sales or marketing. This is somebody that came from community. And this is a long running relationship that we've had. And I am also propagating that so that the sales team has access, the marketing team has access, so they can see where these people are coming from. So this is also because I've spent a lot of time prior to DevRelling in marketing teams and sales teams. Mm-hmm. And so I have an insider view of how those teams actually function and where they pull their metrics from. But that's also part of the reason that in my previous company, when they started to downsize the DevRel team, despite being one of the least technically inclined people, I saved my role for a long time because I could very clearly show, no, I talked to these 25 people in the last 2 weeks. Here's the emails or LinkedIn messages. Here's the exact feedback. Here's the line to product so that they can make that better, or the line to sales so that they can connect with people. Those things are incredibly important, or here's all of the metrics. Here are my blog posts, and all of the links that I have linked to my other blog posts, with also UTC links, so that you can see the cross posting function, whether that's coming from my Medium, from the company blog, or from somewhere else. So I leverage a lot of my previous knowledge of marketing as well as sales cadences, to not just measure the impact of the content or actions that I do, but to make sure that they're reflected in a way that the rest of the company is used to seeing that data presented. So CRMs, Google Analytics, UTC links on everything, logging new people that might not be in the system, measuring the number of people from one specific company. So like I make the company in our HubSpot, and then add people, and have basically propagated, I need an open source tab. We can tag them for sales or tag them as top of funnel for some, but I need an open source community tag as well. So that anytime, because also as DevRel, we get looped into things all the time. Like I get CC'd on a billion different topics from different people all over the place. When there's questions around where I'm placing my attention or time, being able to say, well, right now, here's my Trello board, and here's all of the different things that I've looped into. So I have a Trello board that connects to the marketing one, as well as the sales one, as well as the product one. And I make cards for anything that I've moved into. I make a card on my Trello board, and then I tag the cross-functional people so that it shows up on theirs as well, so that you can see, here's the cross-functionality of what I'm actually doing and all of the different things I'm involved in. So if you have questions, there it is. And if you want me to focus on one specific task, great, tell me which one of these to drop. No. Because that's another thing I think we don't talk about, is because this is a role that can be so diverse in the tasks that you're asked to do. A lot of times, the most important thing you can do in order to make sure that you're measured appropriately is to reduce the number of tasks and make sure that it's like, okay, here's my list of 10. If you want something else, great. Tell me which one of these isn't a priority anymore. Right? Totally. Then it becomes very clear. These are the things that I'm working on. And maybe out of this list of 10, 7 of them will be done tomorrow, because they're checkboxes, but they're priorities. If something here isn't a priority, tell me, and I'll substitute it for something else. But now I stop measuring that, and you should too. So yep. I'm very, but this is also from getting smacked around with life experience to learn it.
I think that's really clever. I will add to that, and this is a really good thing for like your end of year review as well. Every time I publish any kind of content, whether it's video, blog post, podcast, or do a talk, I have a Google spreadsheet where I just log the stuff, the date, the link, the thing I did. And it comes in handy, especially like end of year. What did you do? Well, here you go. This is what I did.
That's exactly, and things like the podcast that we're doing right now, like
exactly.
I would put on, because I'm driving awareness, not just about DevRel and community, but about the company I work for, about how different people function, about our technology. At the end of the day, very much going back to what Adriana said when we began, so much of this is around network and community. And putting your face out there, as we're always part of the brand at the end of the day. And that has its time investment and value across the board, especially when you're talking about DevRel and community. You need to have your brand represented in a lot of different spaces, and that takes time and effort in order to be able to do, and so it should be recognized.
Yeah, I mean, this is gold advice, everyone. I already took like super mental notes about tracking everything, and it's very, very important. It's not only for you, but also, for the entire company, and community work is something you wanna definitely track, as it's like basically myriad of other things. And probably I will want to pick your brains on one last topic before we wrap it up. Because we mentioned, we are like very visibly women in tech. It's kind of hard to be a successful woman in tech, and right now with the position of a DevRel, we're probably somehow misjudged in a way that either, let's say, we're not too techie or very techie, or there's always something missing there in the equation. Maybe we could give it a different spin than going on the rabbit hole of a normal practical discussion, and maybe just give like some advice to young girls out there, or young professionals, or just anybody that wants to follow up on our steps, and like what would be really, really good advice for a woman in tech to be a DevRel and be very successful at it.
I would say, first of all, be patient. As an example, I've had my Medium blog since, I want to say, 2020, and I had a mentee, a guy, at one point, and I was saying, if you want to just make a name for yourself, like, you should blog regularly. So he started a Medium blog. He got like thousands of followers within the first few months. I hit my first like 1K followers after like 4 years. I don't know if it's a combination of like he's a dude and his topic was just something that more people were interested in from a tech perspective. But it is kind of interesting. I do wonder if it makes me wonder if like as a woman, it'll just take longer. That's something you have to be mentally prepared for, but also like be consistent, like post consistently. Like LinkedIn has been my friend. Of all the social media platforms I have used, LinkedIn has been the kindest to me. I post stuff on LinkedIn. People see it. And initially when I was, using LinkedIn, it was like, I wrote a blog post. Here's the link. That it can be as simple as that. Promote yourself. I'm doing a talk. Here's the link. I'm doing blah, blah, blah. Here's the link. I spoke to blah, blah, blah. Like, for example, we should, at the end of this podcast recording, take a selfie, post it on LinkedIn. Why not, right? Like, no one's going to promote you better than you, right? You might have the most supportive friends in tech or partner or whoever who's like, rah, 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 I'm your cheerleader. But like, they will never, ever, ever promote you the same way you will. And it might feel icky because it's like, oh yeah, I'm like being so like narcissistic. I'm promoting my own stuff. But it's like, well, if you don't promote your own stuff, like no one's going to see your stuff. So promote your stuff. Get over it. Get over it. Promote your damn stuff. Yeah. And be patient. Be patient with yourself. You might see success like quickly. And if you do, amazing. Some people are like that. It was a slow burn for me. But be patient. It'll come. Your labor will see rewards.
Perfect.
I think for me, it's a lot of patience with myself. Not so much with everybody else, but more with myself and my own learning curve or plateaus at moments in time. But also be willing to ask for help, but don't ask until you've at least made some effort to understand first. And be very clear about the help you're asking for. So what I mean by is I have so many young professionals reach out to me, like weekly. I get them I really want to become and I'm following your journey, and can you help? Well, sure. But tell me, what are you actively doing? So actively get started and do something. And when you get stuck, then say, I have done this, this, and this, and I'm stuck here. Can you help me with this specifically? Sometimes people can, sometimes they can't, but they know somebody who can, and they will put you in contact with that person. But you have to put in a little bit of effort first. And I think there's so many people who will put in the effort and then they're afraid to ask, right? They're afraid to reach out and ask. Or there's the other side of that coin, which seems to be the complete opposite of I've put in no effort and I'm just going to ask.
Yeah, why not?
Every coin has an edge, and it's very thin. You want to be somewhere on the edge of that coin, not on one side or the other. You want to be on the edge of it. So I think that's the one big one that's been hugely advantageous to me is not being afraid to ask people, put in the effort, and then when I get stuck, just blatantly ask. And sometimes I have been bold enough to be like, look, I've been trying to understand this, and I've read these 17 blog posts, and I also tried to do this, and I also tried to install it, and I have no idea what's going on. It will not work. Will you help me? Or I read your docs and I'm a beginner and they made no sense. So I read them again and it still made no sense. And now that I have ChatGPT, I asked it to explain it to me as a 5-year-old and I got that, but I don't really know how to turn that into a 10-year-old, right? So I still have no idea what it is that your tool does, but at least show that you've tried. And because then people can help you. And they will be a lot more willing to give you some effort if they've seen that you're making it. But this very much falls in line with what Adriana says. Show your effort. And almost more advantageous is showing your limitation, which is a very vulnerable thing to do. But especially in the DevRel and community space, the more willing you are to show your limitation, the better you become at your job. Because turns out the people that you're actually growing awareness of something or teaching them something have probably come across the exact same limitation as you. And so then you become someone that they can relate to because you said, I got to this point and I didn't get it anymore. And turns out that's probably 3/4 of your community. And that's what's stalling your adoption, or that's what's actually stalling the message for awareness to get there, or that's what's stalling people in terms of their dev experience with your tool, is that they hit the exact same limit that you did. And if you're willing to openly say, I hit this limit, then all of a sudden people tell you what content they need. They're like, oh, me too. Okay, great. Let me put in the effort to figure this out and then I will share. So I think those are the two biggest ones for me. Ask for help and be vulnerable. The worst thing that can happen, and it will at some point, is that somebody will call you stupid. But you've probably already, at least in my case, I already did that probably about 75 times before that person actually said it to me. So I've openly accepted, yes, I know I am. I'm trying to not be. Which turns out has a lot more merit than your opinion that I didn't ask for, right? So,
Well,
yeah, I really like that, and I want to echo what you said about like showing the effort that you put in. It reminds me of advice that one of my professors gave me in first year university, because I came to his office for help. It was statics class, civil engineering class. And I came to his office and I'm like, I don't understand this. And he goes to me, well, what have you tried? And I'm like, and he's like, do not come into my office unless you've shown me all the things that you've tried. Otherwise, I can't help you. And I was so upset at the time. But then I walked away and I'm like, damn, dude is right. And I've never forgotten that lesson. And so I really want to emphasize, like, I love that you said that, Cortney, because people can't help you if they don't know that you've tried, if you haven't shown them what you've tried, because it also provides extra context, right? Because otherwise they're going to like go through a different, they're going to, you know, it's the equivalent of like, have you like rebooted your system? It's like, yes, dude, I've rebooted my system. Like, this is what I've tried. Help me. Now that I've explained all the things that I've tried, tell me, what other things should I try?
But we see this in open source and in software development, right? When somebody logs an issue, what's the first thing a maintainer team asks you? Give me everything so that I can reproduce it. I need to reproduce so I can see what you did, and then I can give you some sort of support. So it is something that is a skill that a lot of people are already doing on the technical side. Mm-hmm. That it's just a matter of taking a step back and translating it into the human side of things, I think.
Yeah, and I think today I received so much good information and so much good advice from you that's really how can I say, humbling, but also motivating, and for me, and I hope for the listeners, will be like, yeah, I mean, DevRel is cool, but I need to do this, and that. I need to listen. I need to track. I need to explain things simply. And, you know, I need to speak with a lot of people, but I'm not necessarily an influencer. So, you know, a lot of good advice from our session, from our talks. And yeah, I'm a fan of both of you. I hope many people will right now be curious and actually, you know, Google you and be like, yeah, I want to follow your content. And self-promotion is not bad, people. This is what I took from here. One of the greatest advice. And thank you so much, Adriana and Cortney. And I hope I'll see you pretty soon next, at other podcasts or in real life.
Yes, let's make it happen. We'll have to make it happen. And yes,
yeah, totally. KubeCon. Hopefully we'll see each other at KubeCon.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's very soon happening.
Very soon.
Too soon.
Too soon. I know it's coming up. Panic.
Thank you, people. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.